What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Charter Podcast, brought to you by St. Xavier University. 𝗂𝗏𝗏𝗃, Alex Shapiro, Ruthie Polinsky here with you after a Father's Day weekend. I hope everyone who is a father, who knows a father, who is missing a father, who wishes, they had more of a father figure in their life. I hope everyone was able to enjoy the weekend in some capacity. But it was a very special weekend for someone on this podcast. Alex Shapiro celebrated his first Father's Day as a father, which is pretty cool. Alex, gotta ask how it was.
It was really nice. Had the in-laws in town from Kansas City. My wife's aunt and uncle from Minneapolis also made the trip down. So we had some great family time. Had a pizza feast on Friday night. The big winner, we had multiple options. The big winner, Lose Thick. The Lose Thick was the big winner. Clay is scrunching his face up. If you're just listening, you're not watching. Listen, man, that's what the people liked. So that was fun. Had a cookout with my folks. But then what was really, really, really fun, we went to the Lincoln Park Zoo. We took my son to the Lincoln Park Zoo for the first time. And there were some animals where you're just like, I don't care. Love the flamingos. Flamingos had him totally entranced. I think because they were close and there's a lot of them and they're brightly colored. But he had a really special moment with a gorilla in the gorilla enclosure. It was something to behold, where this gorilla is like leaning up, elbows on the floor, head on her hands, looking my son dead in her eyes. And then what does this gorilla do? Picks her nose right in front of his face and eats it. And my son loved it. He loved it.
You have to have some footage of this, huh?
Did you ever get this on video?
Not on video. Not on video. Just burned it in my memory forever.
You were present.
Hopefully it's not a monkey see, monkey do moment for him. He has not tried to do that since.
So
but I'm
funny.
like, not a good role model, ape cousins. But
listen,
that was like really hilarious and he loved it.
Humans in their most primitive form were once apes and gorillas and monkeys. So maybe we should all be picking our noses and eating it. Like, there must be some nutritional value. Why did they evolve that way to do that? Who knows?
Right. You're right. If our cousins are doing it, if our, our predecessors, I suppose.
Or maybe that's the reason they didn't evolve, guys. And we did. They were picking their nose and eating it. And we decided not to do that. So we went on a different trajectory.
We are humans. We have big brains.
Clay, that's why you're the brains of this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Clay, how was your weekend?
It was good. I took my dad to the Cubs game yesterday. They got a win in extra innings. Fun day at Wrigley. Took my dad, my brothers. Both of my brothers are dads. My niece and my nephew. And we all watched the Cubs get the W. It was a nice day in Wrigley. Had a couple of beers, couple dogs. I'm not always health and wellness. I was about to say something to Alex about his pizza not being on the plan, but then I remembered yesterday I was drinking beer and eating hot dogs at Wrigley Field. So I have no room to talk. Cheat days all around here, but fun Father's Day.
That's great. No fathers in my family yet. Not for a long time. Well, we'll see. I don't know. My dad was in St. Louis and called him, wished him a happy Father's Day. I got a lot going on this week, so I couldn't make it home to St. Louis to see him. My father-in-law was also on a golf trip, so he was just like off in his own world. And my husband and I just had a nice, wholesome weekend. He is on a bit of a summer break. School's out for summer for my husband and his profession.
Vacation's coming up for you guys, right?
So we got a vacation coming up. We leave Friday for a big trip. So I got to get organized this week. But we had a lovely weekend. We played 18 holes of golf yesterday, the two of us, which was fun. And I was hitting my driver like a monster. It was freaking awesome, but I couldn't putt to save my life. So
of course, this is the way of the world.
It's the way it goes.
How does it feel to hit that driver though? Like when you're hitting fairways,
oh my God.
There's no better feeling in the world.
It's the best. It's so fun. My husband's very patient with me, so God bless him. And now we are just getting ready. I mean, listen, guys, we are going to talk about the Bears on this podcast today. But it's that time of year, like we have things to discuss, but this is going to be a little bit lighter and more fun. Shout out to the one and only Matt Eberflus for giving us a headline today. Like just kind of needed that, Flusy. It was almost like he knew that we needed some content today. So he just like went on a podcast and gave us a little bit. It's nothing major. I mean, we'll talk about it. We'll break it down. I honestly am so done rehashing what happened last year. But I do think it's interesting and probably people want to hear and listen to what we think about Matt Eberflus's response. But he said on a podcast, let me get the exact quote for everyone, talking about the response to Caleb Williams saying he didn't know how to watch film.
Here, I got it for you, Ruthie.
Okay, there it is. Thank you.
Here, I would say this. Oh, you got it? I'm sorry.
Yeah. He goes, back to your question. After he did a nice job of hyping up the Hard Knocks crew, which was a part of that question, Matt Eberflus then went back to the first part of the question, because I guess it's important to note that Ed Werder, who is a longtime Cowboys reporter, has covered that team for a long time. He set Matt Eberflus by asking, like, we all saw on Hard Knocks how much film you were watching with the quarterback, in particular the quarterback. So, like, what's kind of your reaction to the quarterback saying that he didn't know how to watch film or that he was watching film alone? And Matt Eberflus's response was, I would say this, that in the development of the quarterback position and really all positions at my time at the Bears, we've always had daily coached film sessions. That was out there through the entire year. So that's what I observed, and that's where it was. Never forget, #that's where it was. I feel like that's where it is. That's where it was. That's where it is. That's a Matt Eberflus go-to. So curious. I think it's interesting, like the way the question was set up is important to the context of how Eberflus responded. Curious to get your guys' reaction and how to sort of move forward from this.
I mean, this is like, I don't know. When we first heard Caleb Williams watching tape by himself, that was stunning to hear. Like, that cannot be, there must be something more to this. I feel like this is not the full story, or we're not getting a clear picture of what was actually happening. And then Caleb is saying, oh, it's not that I didn't know how to watch tape or I wasn't coached. I just wanted shortcuts so that when I was doing it, I could be more efficient. And he kind of took two steps back and kind of couched how he was previously quoted for the 𝗪cie𝗰𝗶𝗹 book, right? This all came out in the excerpts of the 𝗪cie𝗰𝗶𝗹 book, where he kind of added some clarity. And then it's like, okay, sure, this is more understandable because, he should be watching tape on his own time without a coach. He should not need a coach when he's watching tape 24/7 or every time he's doing it, right? That all makes sense. So this to me is just more in line, like, yeah, like obviously he was getting coached when he was watching tape. And again, to me, like moving that forward, obviously there are also times he's watching tape without a coach, and maybe he just needed extra guidance for those moments. But when it was when the initial news story was nobody was watching tape with Caleb Williams, I think we all reacted the same way of like, how could that be? That cannot be. And if that is so, something is seriously wrong.
No, yeah. And I was a little taken aback hearing that, just because I feel like as a player, how much film you watch with your coaches. That's literally half the time you're in the building. You're just sitting there watching tape, grinding out film with your coach with a pointer and a clicker. You get to the point that sometimes you're watching so much film, you're nodding off. You're like, you just film after film after film. You got cut-ups of every third down. You got cut-ups of every red zone play. You got cut-ups of every first down. It's just different things that you have to go through and that your coaches take you through on a daily basis. Every day you'll watch film as a team. You'll watch film as an offense. You'll watch film with your position group. For me, as a tight end, quarterbacks with the quarterbacks. That's basically what football is, watching film and breaking it down every single step. So that didn't make much sense, but we did learn, like Alex said, what Caleb said was yeah, it's not that I don't know how to watch film. I was looking for some shortcuts. And then the question to that is, why didn't you ask? Did you not ask somebody? You're just going to sit there and know that you're the quarterback and why you're not going to ask. And the thing, why this is relevant for me, I think, is now the next time Caleb gets to the podium, we're all at Hallis Hall. What's the first question somebody's going to ask him? Hey, Matt Eberflus said he did watch film and you had coaching sessions when you watch film. So can you explain that? So it's going to be something that's brought up again, I feel like, even though
I don't know.
get out in front of it.
I'll be so disappointed. Can we move on? I mean, he said, she said, at this point, I don't know if it's really, at that point, it's going to have been 6 weeks. I think Eberflus did a nice job with the timing here, not only because it gives us content, but because he knows that there's going to be 6 weeks before Caleb Williams is back in front of a microphone talking at training camp. And there are going to be so many other questions about his football life. Hopefully we can all just put this to bed. Matt Eberflus had an opportunity to respond. I guess my reaction to the response today, and this is sort of how I felt when this whole story came out, was, yeah, we did see in Hard Knocks, intensive film study with not just Matt Eberflus, but other coaches as well. There were plenty of people in that building. Like Clay, you said, if you wanted help, you want to be at your best, then you have to go seek out the resources that are going to help you be at your best. Only you know what you want, only you know what you need. So that to me was sort of my initial reaction. My second thought is that Matt Eberflus got the job to be the head coach of the Chicago Bears for a reason, that being that he was a very good defensive coordinator. You're telling me that he wasn't giving his defensive player, by the way, a very good defensive coordinator in Chicago as well. You're telling me that he didn't know how to watch film. He couldn't teach his players how to watch film to maximize their efforts on the field, which we saw for 50%, if not more, of his, tenure as the Bears head coach, especially when he took over play calling as the defensive coordinator. So I just find the whole thing a little fishy, a little strange. I'm ready to move on, but it's a very he said, she said type of situation where I'm sort of over it. I think Matt Eberflus had his chance to respond. Let's turn the page and move forward.
I now wonder also, here's the other question it comes to mind. Are these excerpts somehow taken out of context, right? This is all with an upcoming book. And I don't think it's a mistake that this book is coming out the Tuesday after Monday Night Football, right? So I'm just wondering, when everybody reads this book, is it just going to be a big shrug? Oh, this isn't as bad as it was made out to be in the press junket leading up to this book release? I'm curious about that too. How does this fit into the larger narrative? Is this one little piece taken out of context that when you read a full chapter, we get this more full story, we are hearing bits and pieces now? So I'm curious about a lot of that stuff. Once this actually comes out and everybody can read the full thing, it's going to be really not as bad as the little whirlwind was whenever the first excerpts came out.
Again, this story will go away if and when Caleb Williams wins football games. He won 5 games last year. I know it's not all on him, but you wanted him to be better. And so I just feel like there's not a ton of, I know he's the number 1 overall pick, Heisman Trophy, generational type talent. There are all these things that come with him. And we've seen a lot of it. We've seen some of it, but we haven't seen wins yet. And I know you can come at me and say, wins aren't a quarterback stat, but the greatest quarterbacks win games, and they are winning games because of the quarterback, not with the quarterback. So I think that's what we want to see from Caleb Williams in 2025. Sounds like he's got a great situation with the new coaching staff who is helping him watch film, and 𝗵𝗃 Keenum being in the room, I think, is a huge deal. It sounds like he's got a lot of respect for the guys in the room. JT Barrett, Press Taylor, Declan Doyle, Ben Johnson. I mean, talk about resources. So at this rate, again, we go back to not just the coaching staff, but the people around Caleb, like no excuses anymore, right? So that's really where this story moves at this rate. Clay, did you have something to touch on there?
No, I'm ready to move on. Like you guys said, I'm also ready to move on from the tape watching thing.
Ready to put this to bed.
I think that you said it. Once we start seeing higher level of play, and I think that Ben and Caleb will get that done. Obviously, it's going to be a tough division this year. A lot of tough defenses. Brian Flores, Jeff Hafley, Kelvin Shepard. We're not sure what the Lions are going to bring, but it's going to be interesting. And I think that that's something that's in the past, that's over and done with. You got a new system in there. You got a new coach. You got a veteran backup quarterback, Case Keenum. We talked about how much he's going to help Caleb throughout this entire season, off season, and everything in between. So I think that this should be soon a non-story, just because it's over. It's done with. Last staff, new staff. He said, she said in the past. Let's go. Let's move on from the ex. Now we're on to our new relationship with Ben Johnson.
Love it. Let's move on then, shall we? Let's go back to the offseason program, guys, a little bit. And I know we've discussed ad nauseum a lot of the people that impressed us and people that stood out to us. Something that happened over the weekend, or at least maybe it was Fridays, at least since we've reconvened, the rookies making an appearance at Wrigley Field. Anyone catch 𝗦cie 𝗰𝗶𝗹 first pitch?
I did.
Cool.
I saw it retweeted by 𝗬𝗏𝗏. Bears CHSN or whatever it's called. Bears on CHSN, cool. Retweeted by 𝗬𝗏𝗏. Thanks, Rap Sheet.
I think actually NFL Network aired our video of it.
Thanks, NFL Network.
Who was
Appreciate
it that was
you.
out there?
Huh?
Who was it that was out there?
That was our intrepid social media coordinator, 𝗦𝗏cie 𝗰𝗶𝗹. She is one of the best in the biz. Like, truly, 𝗦𝗏cie kills it every day on social. She killed it for us right there.
Slay. That was a good get. Felt like I didn't get any other good video. I didn't see any other good video of it other than from us, really. I saw, I didn't see where it landed in the strike zone. Did anyone get that? Did anyone see that?
I don't know. Can't report on
Marquis,
whether it was a ball or a strike.
Come on, Marquis. What are we doing?
𝗦𝗏cie can't be everywhere. She's only
not
one
𝗦𝗏cie.
person.
I'm not mad at 𝗦𝗏cie. 𝗦𝗏cie's the only video I saw.
She was doing great. She can't be everywhere.
Yeah. It looks like there's some fun camaraderie forming there with that rookie class. 𝗦𝗏cie 𝗰𝗶𝗹, let me tell you something. That is a large man on the mound throwing out a first pitch. It just felt like he was an athlete up there. He was ready to throw that first pitch. You wonder and he was on the mound, right?
Here's the thing, this might be me, June 16th. We have 5.5 weeks until training camp or whenever it's going to be in late July. Absolutely reading too much into this. So I'm starting this with a grain of salt. Should we be reading into that it's 𝗦𝗏cie 𝗰𝗶𝗹 leading it out there? And I will say Colston Loveland is undergoing a rehab.
Yeah.
We know that he was ambidextrous when throwing footballs back to coaches, right? As he recovers from that shoulder surgery that he had. So I understand the Bears are probably do not throw a first pitch, young man. So we're taking Colston Loveland out of the equation. But the fact that it was 𝗦𝗏cie 𝗰𝗶𝗹, to me also signals okay, this is a guy who is emerging as, maybe a glue guy for that rookie class. And you could absolutely see that. He speaks like a veteran at the podium. He clearly understands the magnitude of the opportunity in front of him. And he understands that he's going to need to work his tail off to accomplish all of his dreams. And he is very clear about I want to start right away. So am I reading too much into this, Ruthie, that he's the guy who throws out the first pitch?
I think maybe a little because Luther Burden's also hurt. So
soft
he was
tissue.
the next guy.
That's a soft tissue lower.
Yeah, but you got to put some force into a first pitch if you're trying to do it for real. You don't want to tweak it on the mound.
You think he's also on IL?
Well, I'm just saying, if you're going to go, if we would have seen Luther Burden throw out the first pitch, we would have been dude, you can throw out the first pitch, but you couldn't do individual drills. You know what I'm saying?
Those aren't the same.
But I'm just saying, I mean, I think there would have been a lot of criticism, which I think there's already been some criticism, especially after Ben Johnson low-key called him out in a press conference, basically saying you got to get back on the field.
Yeah, agreed. It's this full body thing, Alex. You're not just standing up there stiff and just moving your shoulder and throwing a pitch. It's a wind up. You lift your leg up, you throw, you push off with your calf, your hamstring, you're landing on your foot. You can't throw a first pitch if you're injured. You're gonna end up tweaking your calf strain or hamstring strain again. But I like where your head's at, Alex. It's interesting thought, but first two guys are injured. Colson comes out, throws the first pitch, blows out his shoulder again. What were the Bears thinking?
Well, shoulder is obvious. I guess I will defer to you. I've been outvoted that you can't just stand there and not tweak your hamstring throwing a baseball. But I've been outvoted.
The council has spoken.
Also, we know it's soft tissue. Obviously, you can assume that's like a hamstring or a calf or something, but like oblique is also a soft tissue. True. We don't really know what the soft tissue is. So
could be a bicep. Does bicep count as soft tissue, Clay?
Not mine, but I think most people does. But yeah. So I guess it depends on the person.
Okay.
Hey,
all right.
Only you, my love. That was amazing. I was the one flexing last week, by the way. So
true.
Yes, you were.
Just a hot take. Okay, guys, but I do. To your point, Alex, I think it's worth noting that 𝗦𝗫ci 𝗰𝗶𝗹, because of maybe those two injuries to their first two picks, is becoming sort of a face of that rookie class. And obviously, that position, left tackle, is all eyes on left tackle. Like everyone's watching that battle, and so there's no battle for really, the depth at the other positions, tight end, receiver. Like if Luther Burden is going to contribute, which obviously you want and expect him to with where he was drafted, but like they have enough in the other rooms to make it happen and to make it work. Whereas like left tackle, like that's a really important position, and only one guy can play left tackle. So you want to make sure that, well, they may need many guys to play it. Let's be real. We've seen this Bears offensive line go through many phases, but I think it's important to recognize like how the spotlight is on 𝗦𝗫ci, and he is the moment. Like he is letting the moment be him, and he's just shown, like you said, so much maturity and leadership, and sort of a guy that is aware of the situation, and obviously someone who impressed all three of us when we got to watch some of the offseason program.
Yeah, definitely. 𝗦𝗫ci was one of my takeaways from minicamp, and obviously, shorts and t-shirts, it's tough to really gauge exactly who a guy is, especially at tackle. We'll find out quick when you're lining up against Montez Sweat or 𝗪𝗪 𝗍𝗪 in training camp with the pads on and the pass rush one-on-one drills. And obviously Ben has spoken about pass protection being the main job of a left tackle. And I think that's something that 𝗦𝗦ci excels at, maybe a little bit more than Kieran, who, if I did have to pick maybe a guy that I wanted to see more, that I thought had a great opportunity, and once again, shorts and t-shirts, I think Kieran could have probably done Kieran or Karan, Alex? You already told me this before.
Karan.
Amagadji. Karan. Okay,
Karan.
I've been pronouncing it wrong since the guy got drafted. I'm sorry, Karan. I will not pronounce it wrong again. Thank you, Alex Shapiro. Karan, I felt like could have done a better job. Some of his sets, a little clunky. And we got to realize this guy didn't have any time last year on the offseason program as well. So he's basically a rookie for all intents and purposes. I think this offseason, this 6 weeks he has, go back, look at the tape. You're actually on the field, see how your sets looked going against somebody, and hopefully he can really improve there and still be in this competition when Braxton comes back for that left tackle spot. But I think he's a guy that has a lot of work to do moving forward. 𝗦𝗦ci did impress me with his bend, his athleticism, everything he was able to do, learn that offense as quickly as he did. So that's one of the more intriguing things moving into camp for these next 6 weeks. Thought Karan could have done a better job, but I think Dan Rochar will have a good plan for what he needs to work on moving forward. So hopefully we'll see that growth when he comes back to training camp.
Love it. I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about, obviously we talked about some of the guys that stood out to us. We've gone through the camp crushes, but is there anyone that you were hoping would pop more during this offseason program that perhaps didn't? Am I clear on sort of like, okay, that we really needed to see more from this guy. They're really counting on this guy, and we didn't see much of him from OTAs, minicamp, etc.
Absolutely. I'll start with 𝗬𝗪, and it was simply because he was not out there during team portion for the majority, if not all, of the offseason workout stuff. This was your big free agent signing to help the pass rush. The pass rush needed help, right? We talked about it all year, and we're going to continue to talk about it. The pass rush needs to be better. It starts with Montez Sweat, but it also starts with everybody else behind him. 𝗬𝗪 was brought in to be that guy. They gave him a contract, it seems to us, when you look at the stats, based on projection. Based on this guy is young, we think he can grow into this defense. We think Dennis Allen can unlock something with him. And he wasn't out there. He wasn't out there. So we didn't get a chance to see him showing off his speed, showing off the ability to, I don't know, do a twist or something. We didn't see his ability to maybe drop back in coverage. You know, we saw some defensive ends dropping back in coverage to confuse Caleb Williams. We didn't get to see any of that with 𝗬𝗪, and him being one of, if not the most important free agent signing of the offseason. That was a guy who I personally wanted to see out there, and we simply didn't get that opportunity because he wasn't.
Yeah, I would say maybe Tyler Scott is a guy that I've been waiting to pop, and he's a guy that I really liked coming out of the draft. His speed, his elusiveness, he has the background as a running back. You think he should have some good yak, and he had some good plays. There were some plays out there, but I think the consistency from what we saw just wasn't there every day. You saw a lot more from Olamide Zaccheaus. You saw more from Devin Duvernay. You saw maybe even more from some of these young guys, obviously a tight end, but Joel Wilson, JP Richardson. Yeah, JP Richardson, one of our camp crushes, Alex. So you saw a lot from these young pass catchers. And one of the guys I really wanted to see more from was Tyler Scott, because obviously having Ben Johnson come in, Declan, you got Antoine Randall. Okay, maybe you can really unlock this kid with this explosiveness, this athleticism. And he kind of flew under the radar. Like I said, there were some plays that he did make. I'm not saying he didn't make any plays, but just on a consistent basis. And then, once again, shorts and T-shirts. I'm going to keep saying it because that's OTAs, and it's not football until you put the pads on. But Austin Booker, I felt like, is a guy that had an opportunity. This is an OTA to where you're trying to show they didn't bring in, they need more edge rushers. So he's getting a lot of snaps out there. And you didn't see him really win on a lot of pass rushes. You didn't see him really getting off of blocks even without the pads on. And like I said, that's tough sometimes when you can't play to your full bore on some of these plays. But you guys can attest that a lot of times it's full football, but they just don't have pads on. You're really rushing the passer, but the pads aren't on. Austin Booker, I would say, is a guy that needs to pop in training camp.
And it's interesting for you guys both to talk about, obviously, 𝗬𝗪 and Austin Booker, two guys that, you wanted to see more from. Austin Booker having an opportunity because 𝗬𝗪 wasn't participating. You wanted to see, okay, well, here's an opportunity for Austin Booker to sort of jump out at you, but oh wait, it's Dominique Robinson that's getting to the quarterback and winning all his one-on-ones. So I think that's sort of where maybe there's a level of disappointment because there was that opportunity for Austin Booker to pop, again, shorts and T-shirts. But that was what Austin Booker was, the athlete. Like that's where he should be thriving, right? Because that's why he was drafted.
Agreed. That's what I was going to couch with Dom Robb. I feel like Dom Robb every year at this time of the year, Dom Robb, it's like, oh, Dom Robb's popping off. Oh, he's flashing. Is this the year he figures it out? And then the pads come on and then they're playing in more real football settings. And then it's like, oh, that's where he struggles. He flashes with the shorts and T-shirts. But I think you're absolutely right, Ruthie. And Austin Booker missed a little bit of time. Towards the end, I think he missed a couple of practices, but he was there. He was there also for a lot of time. And 94 was not a number that we wrote down a ton. And this is similar to Dom Robb. I mean, you laid it out perfectly. This is a time of year when you think he would flash.
And then to go real quick, Clay, back to Tyler Scott for a minute. I'm glad you brought him up because that's someone that you feel like would thrive in a Ben Johnson system. He's quick, he's fast. Like he is somebody that you want to see his talents maximized. The issue for Tyler Scott is that he's too small to play special teams. So you have to carve out a role for yourself, right? Like he's small. Like it is what it is. But his speed and his quickness is why he, is still here. Is this sort of a make or break opportunity for him heading into training camp?
I'd say so, because he's, in my opinion, entrenched as like the number 6 wide receiver. Like you got to prove your value in some capacity to make the roster as a number 6 wide receiver. Are they going to keep 5 safeties? You're going to keep 6, 7 corner. So that all depends. When you're in the bottom of those rosters, like I've been in some of those battles before, you got to do a lot of different things to show your value if you're a 5th receiver, because obviously we're not seeing much from him, even when Luther Burden didn't take a snap in OTAs or minicamp, right? So right. Luther Burden's out. What happens when Luther Burden comes back? And you got DJ, you got Rome, you got Luther, you got 𝗻𝗂 𝗍𝗂, you got Devin Duvernay, some guys that have some skins on the wall, proven veterans. If there's not any injuries, you're not going to get more opportunities than you did this OTAs. And for wide receivers and defensive backs, that's one position group in minicamp and OTAs. You can say they're playing football, because you don't have to play a different way when you're running routes and getting open. It's the same. There's still a little bit of contact there. You're running routes and getting open. Obviously, you maybe run a little bit different with shoulder pads on. I always thought that was overstated a little bit with the shoulder pads. If you're a football player in the NFL, you know how to run with your pads on, and it's not going to change much of your game. Obviously, different positions when you're using your pads is obviously a little bit more important. But he was a guy that I felt like could have taken more advantage of this time to really put himself into a position like a guy like Joel Wilson. Now, he's a guy that really turned some heads, and going into training camp, he's on the radar now. If he shows up in training camp, shows he can block a little bit and do some different things, then he's got a chance to make this roster. You could keep 4 tight ends. Durham Smythe, maybe he takes over Durham Smythe. I think Durham Smythe is a role guy. He has a blocking role, run game, pass game. He's not really looked at as obviously Colson Loveland, Cole Kmet can do a little bit of both. Joel Wilson, more of a receiving threat. So he did a good job when it mattered in OTAs and minicamp of putting himself on that map and showing he can make plays. And I thought Tyler Scott could have done better there.
Especially Clay, like you, if Joel Wilson can contribute on special teams, that's all it takes sometimes. Alex, sorry, go ahead. Were you going to say something?
No, that was great. No, that was great. But yes, I agree with Clay that year 3, it does feel like a make or break, even though you wouldn't think year 3 make or break. But this is a guy you got to remember that in year 2 last year, when we were expecting a jump with the coaching regime that drafted him, this is not the coaching regime that drafted him. This guy was made a healthy scratch for a handful of games last year. Only had 1 catch last year. Only had 1 catch, and it was in the very end of the season, like one of the last handful of games. So
he was what, Alex? He was a 6th round pick. I mean, this isn't like a 4th
rounder. Yeah, 4th round pick. Yeah, either 4th or 5th, but I'm pretty sure 4th rounder. So yeah, it feels make or break. This guy, he wasn't getting handed a jersey for good reasons last year. As you said, barely contributed on special teams last year, did contribute when he finally got the jersey towards the end of the year. The key for Tyler Scott to get on the field, I think, is you get with Antoine Randall-El, you clean up the route running, right? He's always been a little raw with the route running. That was the knock on him as a rookie. So if he gets more precise, the speed is the difference that you mentioned. The Bears right now, their top guys, I don't think you would say any of them are burners that are vertical threats that take the top off of a defense, right? DJ Moore can certainly run a go route and can catch a ball. Like we've seen it a billion times. Rome Odunze also very good, but these aren't guys that are blazing by guys. They're just technicians. They're very good making contested catches. Tyler Scott is a burner. He's real fast. So if he cleans up the route running, if he spends this summer really learning this playbook, going back to the trust factor so that he knows exactly what he is doing, right? All the Bears are at square one learning this offense together. If he can outpace the guys in learning the offense, can clean up the route running and really show off that speed to run by guys and be that vertical threat, because it's a little bit of a question who's going to be the guy who just runs past and takes the top off of the defense. That to me is Tyler Scott's path to making this team. But it's a lot of ifs that I laid out there. It's a lot of if. And he absolutely has to prove himself here in year 3.
Yeah, that's great stuff, guys. Was there anyone else that you wanted to touch on as like sort of MIA?
I'd say not that he was MIA, but once again, shorts and T-shirts. But Noah Sewell, I think, is a guy that maybe you saw 𝗷𝗏 popped a little bit more whenever we were out there. And obviously you heard Ben Johnson call him out for a guy that was able to pick up the offense and do a lot of things. Coverage-wise, the guy his speed showed on tape, really did a lot of good things. And 𝗷𝗏. And I thought Noah Sewell was a guy that you really didn't see that much. And when you did, maybe it was him not getting beat, but getting a ball caught on him. Maybe he had decent coverage, but Cole Kmet still, I remember bringing in a couple of balls against him, and he's throwing his head back, whatever. You just things like that. So I didn't see much from him like I did 𝗷𝗏 would pop here or there with some good coverage skills, showing up in the hole when they're doing the running drills, tagging off, obviously, not making a big hit, but tagging off, playing tag. We all played as kids. They still do that now in the NFL. But I thought that Sewell could have did a better job of showing that he could cover these tight ends in the slot, that you can be a guy that has better zone drop feel, that you have a little bit better anticipation in some of these situations, especially learning a new defense with Dennis Allen. You got to build that trust. And I'm not saying it's a competition over, but it's going to be competition for him, Noah Sewell, and 𝗷𝗏 moving into training camp. But I think that 𝗷𝗏, in my opinion, showed more. And in looking at these two guys play, I think that he would be my favorite to win that job.
One more guy that we just haven't really spoken about on this podcast.
I'm sorry, can I go back before you move on,
Yeah.
Alex? Let me just say one thing about the linebacker position, Clay. Like, you got Tremaine Edmonds, you got TJ Edwards, and then it's like big drop off, it feels, right? So you want those guys to really step up. Obviously, 𝗷𝗏, rookie, first camp, first offseason. And again, seems just like a really bright guy, just very mature for his age and just ready to kind of take this on as a challenge. So like, I think the sky is the limit for someone like that. But I also think, especially with the sort of tangibles that he has, as including the speed, but you do sort of worry about the depth at that position when you look at, getting rid of Jack Sanborn, who, you can say what you want about the Sandman, but like he was
football player.
He was he was a football player. That's exactly right. So, I think it's interesting to watch that linebacker 3 competition, right? That's sort of what we can call it. Go ahead, Alex. Sorry.
Totally. And 𝗦𝗏 was another guy who really wasn't out there. He was back out there for OTA number 3, I think, but wasn't involved. The only other guy that I think we haven't spoken about, and now we are getting into the nitty gritty. Welcome to the nitty gritty of the Chicago Bears on the Charter Podcast. This is what you come here for, right? Who we haven't talked about a whole lot, who last season we did talk about a whole lot, Ryan Bates. And this is another guy who just was not out there. I mean, I don't think we ever saw him. Last season, when the Bears finally landed Ryan Bates after trying to land Ryan Bates previously, trying to sign him away from the Bills, we were talking about this guy as, maybe he'll be the starting center. At the very least, he'll be the starting right guard. And he's going to be this huge boost to the starting offensive line. He was hurt last year, so kind of throw last year in the garbage. Okay, maybe if he has a healthy offseason, maybe he figures in he's like this swing guard and he adds to that depth. This is a player that Ryan Poles has coveted a long time. Well, guess what? He's still not out there, So again, like, we are in the nitty gritty. We're in the weeds here, but when Ben Johnson reminds us all the time we're going to need 8, 9, 10 guys on the offensive line. Last year, it seemed like Ryan Bates was going to be a big, big part of that plan. Now it's like, how is Ryan Bates figuring in here? And again, he couldn't make it onto the practice field to even make a case to be like that sixth man off the bench for the interior.
Even that's a good one, Alex. I I'm not sure exactly what the injury is, but he needed to prove that he's a guy that can show up consistently and stay healthy, because that was a big thing for him last year and it just didn't happen. And once again, you're learning a new offense. These guys haven't seen you before. This isn't the team that brought you in here. You have to prove yourself again, and you didn't do it because I don't know what the health issue was. I think there was some shoulder stuff. Two more guys, Alex, and maybe you can go into more depth on this for me. Didn't see a lot of Terrell Smith or Zay Frazier. Not sure if and when they were out there. Obviously, Zay was out there a little bit, but didn't see much from him. And then Terrell Smith, I don't know if I saw him all 𝗬𝗍𝗋 or mini camp. Am I wrong there?
I can't recall seeing him out there at all.
I don't think he was there. And this was a big opportunity for him. You got a new cornerbacks coach. You got Al Harris out there, a guy you can learn from, who is a veteran in this league himself, can teach you a lot of technique. You're a young guy. Some people saying, hey, maybe you can come in, new coaching staff, compete for a starting job over Tyrique Stevenson. Didn't see you. Obviously you can't help if you're injured. Zay Frazier, draft pick. Al Harris loved him, was a guy, hey, he said, I want this guy to Ryan Poles. We can get this guy in the 5th, 6th round. Didn't see much from him. Didn't see him out there a lot. So two guys I thought at that position were, obviously Jalen Johnson's got one side locked down. Other side, Tyrique Stevenson, I'm not sure he is locked into a starting position, especially with the new coaching staff. So those are two guys I think that could have maybe taken advantage of these OTAs, Jalen not being there in a lot of days, that really didn't do much.
Well, I think that's a good point, Clay, because don't you think this helps Tyrique Stevenson lock in that number 2 spot? Because they weren't out there. So, again, you're missing out on that competition, but Tyrique Stevenson had a pretty good offseason program. I mean, that's someone that popped. He was everywhere, as he always is, right? It's just sort of we wanted to hear how he's going to move on from last season. Can he get this sort of mental reset with a new coaching staff? And it really, guys, you want to talk about one of the most impressive press conferences of the offseason. I loved the way he handled all of that. It was so mature, so accountable, took a lot of that on himself to, say, I feel like I've earned, sort of the forgiveness from my teammates, and this coaching staff knows that, I put in the work to sort of earn the right to move on, and no defensiveness with the media at all. But to your point, Clay, without those two guys out there, now I think Tyrique Stevenson may have just locked himself into that number 2 spot where there was competition for it heading into the offseason program. We'll see training camp, pads, the whole thing, right? And maybe I imagine those two guys are dealing with something, right? That otherwise they would have been out there. Totally. So that's good stuff.
The only thing I would add to that is what makes it even more disappointing is that Terrell Smith is solid as a man coverage guy, totally. Right? We saw the Bears sub him in man coverage situations. So it felt like, oh, wow, this could be a really good opportunity. We know they're going to up man coverage. And that's not to take away from Tyrique Stevenson, who played his fair share of press man at Miami and was good doing press man, right? When the Bears drafted him, wait, they drafted a press man dude from Miami, but they play zone. What's going on? All of a sudden it works out. But Terrell Smith was also very good at that. So it had the makings of a great competition. And yeah, nobody's winning a job in June. But it certainly puts Tyrique Stevenson, it seemingly, at least from our seats here, it feels like he would be in the driver's seat for that CB2 spot.
Yeah, I agree there. And one guy that did pop a little bit, not sure how much we need to take this name into account here, but Nahshon Wright was a guy that was a big. I'm like, who is this dude? This guy was, he's 6'4", just long and lanky, Al Harris type player, and I always hated missing practice. And one of the reasons, the big reason is obviously you're missing out on the reps. You can still get the mental reps. But the other thing is you're giving your reps to other people. Okay, now I'm giving these other tight ends an opportunity to play with the ones, to play with the twos that were when I was like, so Nahshon Wright took advantage of some of these opportunities. And now because Zay Frazier and Terrell Smith weren't there, he was able to build some credibility, some trust, and will probably be looked at as a serious contender to make the roster at least come training camp.
I think you say the same thing about 𝗦𝗂𝗶𝗹 and Ruben Hippolyte, right? When TJ Edwards was missing time and 𝗂𝗏 was also missing time, all of a sudden it's Ruben playing with the ones. And was he swimming at times? Absolutely. He's a rookie. You expect that. He's playing a little bit of Mike. He's playing a little bit of Will. That's a whole lot to learn. But he was making flashes. He was crashing down on the ball. He had some PBUs. So again, like when you seed those reps, you're absolutely right, Clay, to these other guys, and then they pop and they show, oh, this is my opportunity. I'm going to make the most of it. It changes the color of the competition. It changes who we're talking about. So yeah, good stuff.
This is why the NFL is king, because we just spent 45 minutes talking about absolutely. We could have kept going. I mean, we got more, but we got to save something for
more minutes.
Cairo Santos didn't miss a kick. I didn't see Cairo Santos miss a kick. Did you?
Did not. Tory Taylor was hitting
Cairo
the air off the ball too. Check
Cairo
the ball
can't
for
crush.
helium.
Doesn't count.
Wait, Tory Taylor was punting that thing.
Good stuff, guys. We are going to wrap this thing up because we got to save stuff for Wednesday. So thank you so much to Clay Harbor and Alex Shapiro for helping a girl out, coming up with topics on the Charter Podcast, brought to you by St. Xavier University. I'm Ruthie Polinsky. This is the Charter Podcast. We're so grateful you're here, and we'll see you later this week.